seems to have questions about it, and I had it transcribed, so we're going to listen to it, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to talk about some dogs, too.
Dispatch. 204. Copy 10-8, 76 off to the scene. 204, go ahead. I'll be 23 at that location. 9432, same traffic, dispatch. 10-4, 43209. 204-193. 193. Is there anybody available that could run us down a roll of barrier tape? Where do you need it? Houses? Down by the red trailer. You'll see them. 752-496. Go ahead. We're almost at the end of Kuss Road. Should be a squad down there. I don't know who's sitting in it, but bring an investigator down here. We got some items that should be cleared. Copy. 486, you may want a shovel. 752, we copied. We'll make arrangements here. For it, just an item that should be checked a little further. 417-183, you calling me on code? Yeah, you will copy. Dispatch, you go ahead. There's going to be a Josh Radon. He's, okay. He needs to come back here when he comes through, probably 10. I copy Josh Radon. 432-193, 193. Copy on code 432, go ahead. 193, can you copy on code? 10-4, we're going to need a marked unit at the end of Kuss Road. Marked unit at the end of Kuss Road to control traffic. Okay, you need to stop it at Q-Queen and Kuss. Affirmative. That's where you could set up Kuss, White Cedar Road, and Q Queen, and then obviously no one's to come down here other than the crime lab. Copy. We'll work on that. Copy, thanks. Cal is requesting a Manitowoc County unit for that. That's 432. 43193. 193, go ahead. Alright, we're going to be west of you, down the road by the trailers. We're going to have someone take a look at something and set up an investigation. Yes, we're right down the road. Lieutenant? Alright, I don't know if we have one to send. Okay, bye. Alright, what we got is a person there who just off the property in the debris on a cell phone. Yeah. 183-403. 403. They have two investigators, I believe, here in this cornfield with winter wheat growing in it, correct? If you go just down the lane where the trailers are, that's where we are, just by the property, right by the road. It would be west of the command bar. Alright, two investigators, DCI, one with a blue jacket, one with a brown, if you could show them in when you get there. 204-209 on code. then we'll go from there. You want to repeat? You cut out. Just hang tight and grab something to eat. John said that somebody will contact you when they need you. There are hot dogs and stuff at the end of the road at Salvation Army. 10-4, thanks. 209-193. 209, you calling 193? 10-4, are we using our ambulance for anything? I'd be negative. Could you have somebody roll it down over here? 10-4. 4-5 dispatch. Got it. 209. 209. 204, 209. Somebody calling 209. 204, could you give me a 21 on my cell phone? Stand by. 496 to 752. 496 to 752. 496 to 752. 496 193. 496 752. 193 496. Trace the Hallmark 193. Is 752 around there, Bushman? I need him over here for, or at least I need to contact him. I got a number for him. He's not here. I believe he's completing another assignment away from here. 496 752. 496, go ahead. 496 752. I need you to call a number. Are you ready to copy? What? 418. 432 Go. 432, go ahead. This area will be a negative if you want to let them know. 10-4. 204-752. 432-487. 487. Go ahead, 432. LT, you're going to have to scratch me from the schedule tomorrow. I'm going to be needed out here again tomorrow. 10-4.
Alright, here's the call signs for the officers. 402 Belkey, 193 Shetter, 432 Colborne, 405 O'Connor, 402 Swearick, 452 Orth, 420 Siders, 278 Remaker, 479 Tisler, 423 Herman, that's Todd Herman, not Rob Herman, 487 Seam, then we got 449 Jost, 209 Jacobs, 204 Link, 496 the other Herman, 752 Bushman, and 403 Sengelop. Now, when they're on Kuss Road the whole time, Colbert in the case of report, there's only mention of him going with Bill Tyson and Link when they go and search Avery's trailer and garage and the Dashy residence to get all the guns. They also go to the Avery's office to get the guns too, but they don't get those until the 9th when they call for a locksmith to come in. They call for an ambulance on Kuss Road. Why? That's a very good question. Now, Braun, you there? Now, when they say they're at the command post, this is where the command post is. It's on the east side of Avery's. So when they say we're just west of you, you can see Steven's trailer there. It's a little red dot. Alright, here's Google Maps. So this would be where the command post is. And they say we're just down the lane. Now back in 2005, this was the field with the winter wheat growing in it, all over here. There was a fence that ran right along here. And there was
Do you want me to? Oh, we've got a map actually of 2005. We can show in a minute.
I know we're going to, but I'm just going over this way. So there was a lane that went all the way over here to Kuss Road. Now let's say we're just down the lane, past the trailers, down by the road, by the houses. Now when they request the barrier tape, they put the barrier tape over here. This little highlighted mark, this is the GPS coordinates where the possible burial site that they turn into just a tree stump that they say that's no importance, but they're there until 9 p.m. That's when Dietering leaves. And then when they request them to block off the road, like for instance, the Manitowoc Summary Report, they only mention this street right here in it. They don't mention anything about Kuss Road. So when they cut off the road, they cut it off right here. Q, Queens, and Kuss. This is Q, running this way. Colborne requests a Manitowoc sheriff officer to take control of the roadblock right here. It says don't let nobody in but the crime lab, unless it's Josh Redant. He's okay. He can come right in. Like, what the fuck? That morning, we got, I don't know how many different officers. We got Link, Colborne, they both get there at like 7:15, 7:16. Bushman arrives at 7:38, accompanied by Todd Herman. Dietering arrives at 7:01. Billy Tyson around 7:17, along with Kelly Sipple. When she and Billy Tyson arrive, they're set up into search teams, 4 of them, A, B, C, and D. Bushman is the head of Team A, which is controlled on Kuss Road. Now, in the summary report, they only mention 3 officers, Segalog, Bushman, and Yost. They don't mention Colborne or any of them, none of them, because they're only supposed to be supplying security, which is a bullshit lie. Now, we'll go on to these dogs. Now, when you hear Colborne say Teresa Hallbach west of Avery's, you can hear him say keep aloof east, and then he's talking in the background on somebody else's radio, picks him up, and he's walking past him, and as he's walking past, that's why it starts to fade out and you can't hear what the rest of he's saying. But they're definitely on Kuss Road. And when they find the barrel, it's not on Stephen Avery's property. It's on Kuss Road. Alright, Bron, ready to talk about these dogs?
Sure thing. I was going to connect on my computer, but to see if I could get rid of the echo. Is the echo very bad? Can someone respond?
I think it's good. It was just echoing because I had my mic on.
Yeah, people were saying it was echoing before as well. I'm assuming people can hear me now. Cool.
All right, we're going to go with the dogs 3 and 5 tracks.
Okay. I can't see anything in the chat at the moment. My chat's not working. So I'll just
Go ahead.
keep going. Okay. So for some reason, I'm behind you. So have you got that up now?
Yes, I do.
Okie dokie. So track 3 is what colour, Millbilly?
I believe it's the green one.
Okay, so track 3 starts at Stephen Avery's. So it's the longer of the two. Sorry, I'm trying to juggle multiple screens. I'm not lucky enough to have 2 screens like Millbilly. Okay, track 3 is the green one, correct? Yeah. So if I just read it through, then you can just follow it along. So we walked down the driveway to the Avery property to the area where the van was sitting for sale. I presented Canine Loof, and that was with the insole from a pair of black shoes. Please ask questions if you want to ask any questions about the dogs. Did a perimeter scent inventory, which means they basically just walk the dogs around, help them to pick up any scent that's around. Canine Loof was harnessed, given the scent article of the insole, and given the command of find. So they started about 50 feet east of the van. Canine Loof immediately went to the front portion of the van for sale, then continued west, going to a black F350 parked in the driveway in front of a garage. That was Stephen's car in front of Stephen's garage. Canine Loof went to both doors of the truck. Canine Loof then went directly to the service door of the garage and worked her nose along the bottom of the actual overhead garage door, showing much interest. Canine Loof worked west around the side of the garage, but was unable to continue due to a large, aggressive-appearing German Shepherd. Canine Loof wanted to continue around the garage. So you can see there, I think, so that's that dip down. So you can see right at the start, there's a little dip down. Echo stopped. Okay, great. I think it must just be a bit of a, when it's getting used to the switchover. Canine Loof went up to the south door of the trailer home, so that's on the lower side. The door having a small porch entrance, and the door was white in colour. That's how you can tell the difference between Stephen's trailer and the Kuss Road trailer, the colour of the door. Canine Loof wanted to enter the home. Canine Loof continued north along the trailer and went between some pine trees and a burning barrel. That means Canine Loof has gone along the end of the driveway and is now heading north, so towards these fields, up the map. So this map is north is up. Canine Loof smelled a charred area, showing some interest, and then continued west. Canine Loof went west in a picked cornfield. That phrase, picked cornfield, is one that keeps coming up over and over again. Above the green, they're actually paw prints, by the way. Above the green paw prints, that's a picked cornfield, and that's where there's a little track that goes along just between the trees and that cornfield. Picked cornfield means it's a cornfield that has been picked. That's all it means. Directly to the south was a gravel pit, and in between the two was an area of brush and trees. Canine Loof worked this area with indications of a very strong scent. Canine Loof worked west, coming out to a cul-de-sac. That's Kuss Road. That was taped off with crime scene tape, and 2 deputies were not allowing access. Canine Loof crossed the tape on one occasion and then was told not to go any further. The deputies phoned Sheriff Pagel to see if I could continue, but were told not to allow access to anyone at this time. And she notes there that Canine Loof was working with a strong scent. And it's worth saying at this point that that's not surprising, because when you look at this map, you can see that there's quite a lot of brush, like the trees and the brush will hold the scent. So they're talking now, she says here, it's 1 week after Teresa was last seen. That's quite a long time for a scent to have to be held. And so you'd be looking at any areas that are damp, brushy, where the wind would be minimal. They're going to be the areas that will hold the scent the best. basically. Other than that, it'll be really dispersed if it's even there. So we can talk about that a bit more as we go along through some of the others. Are there any questions that I missed? No. Okay. So that was that one. So basically that was where they were stopped. Do we want to keep going
Yep, they got stopped
with
right at
what happened at that point?
Yep, keep going.
Okay. So then probably on to number 5. So number 5 is actually a repeat. Track 5 is a repeat of track 3. The DCI agents and Sheriff Pagel asked if Canine Loof would be able to rerun track 3. Interestingly, Sarah says that she said, we would try, but since we last ran it, it had been highly contaminated because there were 20 plus people standing around. And in addition to that, she actually writes that Canine Loof has just run a long track. But she says we'll do our best. So Canine Loof was pre-centred and a perimeter inventory was done halfway between Avery residence and the cul-de-sac. Millbilly, I can't see the chat, so if you can read if there's anything that I need to see, just says that I'm disconnected from it. Which point? About the scent? Okay. In writing? Okay. Let me finish this one. Have you put up the next track? 5. Track 5. Thank you. Can see that my internet's gone off. So what they did was they started halfway between there and they went across. I gather they actually did the same. Yep, they used the same scent source. Canine Loof worked east along the cornfield. That's interesting. I am fairly sure that she must mean west, because if Canine Loof worked east along the cornfield, if you've started halfway between the Avery residence and the cul-de-sac of Kuss Road, and then you work east along the cornfield, you can't then enter Kuss Road cul-de-sac, which means that that must be an error in her report. And so then she enters that crime scene. Then Canine Loof actually exits it almost straight away and goes over to that log house, which is that brown house there. So she goes diagonally down and then goes out to the driveway that the deer camp, out to the deer camp driveway, and then loops around and comes back and finishes at the burial site. Sorry, possible grave site. Now, what is really fascinating to me is that Loof finishes at this point, and what Sarah writes is this. Loof was looking at the area of possible grave site, then looking at me, which is common when the smell is not favourable. Canine Loof, with much encouragement, simply walked to the area marked off, although making no indication that it was Teresa Holbach's scent. The reason I'm interested in that is because why would the smell not be favourable? And if I was to guess, I'd be saying it's because they had tried to cover it.
Remember, this is 7 days after she's gone missing.
Yep. So this is that one was on the 7th when they reran it, and it was at 3:45 in the afternoon.
So pretty much.
So this is the same.
So pretty much, Luke started over there. They stopped him, told him to go
Mhm.
back, and then after they cleared everything up, they brought the dogs back.
Correct. And they did the exact same thing with the cadaver dogs. They actually sent them to Michael's, and then they brought them in here. Both dogs actually alerted on that potential grave site, potential burial site, I should say. Then they sent the dogs away. They took them away, not very far away from what I could gather, just like, I'm guessing probably walked them to, maybe, 20 steps away or something, then brought them back. And that's where you can read that they no longer alerted on a shovel. They alerted on a shovel the first time, then they didn't alert on a shovel.
And they also
They
Manitowoc Sheriff's Department requests a roll of barrier tape and a shovel.
Yep. So that was before that. So
And twice they say, first Bushman requests the barrier tape and the shovel and asks them to send an investigator because they have a few items to look at. Later on in that call, dispatch, you hear Colborn say, "Oh, we found a burn barrel with debris, cell phone. We're going to need somebody to come check this out, too." So it's two different things they're talking about.
So my theory is that the way they're using the dogs is actually, one, they're using them to find things, but they're actually using those dogs more to make sure they're not leaving anything behind. So when you look at the dog reports and the dog maps, just keep that in mind. I honestly think that's particularly with the cadaver dogs, that's how they're using them. If you think it through logically, if you are looking for someone, why would you get a dog to retrace its steps? It doesn't make sense that you would actually get a dog to retrace its steps just a few hours later or the next day to see if it's still alerted. Why? And almost every time it doesn't alert the second time. That it's just too suspicious to me. Yeah. And you've actually got someone down at Kuss Road who is an expert in dogs, because Bushman used to work with dogs. And that's really important to remember too. The other map that is really significant is number 6. And that's the long one that they actually start at Kuss Road. And that's where they actually go from Kuss Road, and the dog goes straight down into the gravel pit. Have you got that, Millbilly? Okay, thanks. Interestingly, they did just ask if it would be picked up, if the scent would be picked up if Teresa was in a vehicle. And I found that all interesting, and you can read that in the report. I don't think they were necessarily looking for her vehicle at this time, but it was an interesting question. This is perhaps, I think, the most significant of all of the routes is this track 6. So they didn't start at Kuss Road. They went right past the trailers here. They started again at Stephen Avery's trailer. They did this same dip down, around Kuss Road. So you can see it's exactly the same route. Then they went around the trailers and literally did a loop around the trailers, then straight down into the gravel pit. Where you can see that the little paw prints go into the water, they literally went into the water. And remember I said before that the water holds the scent? that will be why the dogs dipped into the water there. And she actually talks about that. Where did she talk about it here? I think I've got the wrong one up here. Yeah, I have. I'm on 4. Yeah, this is the one where they find the CD also between the Avery salvage yard and Kuss Road. And there's no doubt in my mind that someone dropped a CD, because remember, this is days and days and days later. And the CD was marked with evidence tape. So someone actually dropped a piece of evidence. Be interesting to know what that CD was. So then they came up out of that water there and then went straight up and onto the berm that they talk about. See that area where there's heaps and heaps of pink? That is what they call the berm. And it's like a hill, I guess. And what's on that hill, can't kind of see because I've drawn all over it. Again, heaps of trees, foliage, things that would hang on to scent. That's also, incidentally, where Stephen Avery saw headlights. Is that the 3rd, Millbilly? No, 4th.
No,
4th.
That's the night of the 3rd.
3rd. It was the 3rd, yeah, when he went to Menards, yes?
Yeah. Chuck and calls Stephen on the 4th, on the 4th, and when he's leaving to go to Trivets and says, hey, I think I seen lights back by me.
Yeah, but this berm one, that was where Stephen saw the lights at the berm.
Yep.
Wasn't it? And that was on the 3rd.
Yep.
So you have to wonder whether there was someone in there doing something.
Yep.
Because cars could be driven all through here at that time.
Yep. And on the 3rd, they leave. They get to Avery Road and 147. Stephen says he sees lights over here. Instead of turning around and coming right back, Chuck goes all the way down to Jambo Creek, turns around, then comes back. They check it out. Stephen gets out, grabs his flashlights, looks around, doesn't see anything. They get back in, and A, go to put money on Jody's books and go to Menards, or B, go to Menards and then put money on Jody's books. But they're checking out at about 8:30, and Stephen is home in time to talk to Jody at 9:33 p.m. on the 3rd. We have not been given that call on the jail calls. The only one we have is the one where Jody calls Dolores' house and talks to Stephen at his mom's house at 5:38 p.m. After that phone call, Colborn shows up at the Averys and talks to Stephen at his mom's house.
Yeah. The rest of that, after that shepherd had finished going back and forth on that berm, basically went through Stephen Avery's backyard, jumped through the fence, which took me ages to work out what they were talking about, because they were talking about the southwest corner again. But what they meant was the southwest corner of Stephen Avery's property, as opposed to the Avery property.
Yep.
Yeah, so they actually mean basically his fence line. So you can see where the pink goes. Basically, Loof then jumped through that fence, went down to where the Y of the conveyor is, and then somehow did a loop, and I can't kind of follow exactly which way the dog did it. My theory is that conveyor is actually quite significant, and there were trees put at the conveyor, the golf cart was at the conveyor. I actually think that's quite a significant spot. the dog went around there and then ended up down where the RAV was found. I think that's where the loop ended.
Yes.
They worked the dogs really, really hard in these few days. Interestingly, she asked about all the wind directions and wind directions since she'd been missing, and the information was, quote, not available. You can't tell me that they couldn't find that, or they couldn't have got that information for him. That's just...
Track 4.
Yep, done. We did that, I think.
Nope.
Yep. Where they looped around.
I'm talking about the one where they go under Conveyor Road.
Oh, yeah. So you haven't got those ones?
Yeah, I do. It's up right now.
That's track 6 still. That's the end of track 6. Oh, hang on. What colour is it?
Purple.
Okay. So I sent you one that I didn't know I'd sent you.
And they start at the deer camp, Cross Road.
Yes, thank you. Yep. Okay. So that's the one they started the deer camp from.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one they asked if it was in a vehicle.
Yeah.
So, yep. So, that's right. So she walked. So the dog walked straight to a burning barrel and a garage with interest.
Yep. And if you've seen the flyover, somebody screenshotted the photo of that burn barrel with the golf cart right next to it. And
yeah,
that is in the area right down here in Radant's property, not Stephen Avery's.
No.
Radant's.
No. Do you have that photo handy of Josh Radant's, one of his buildings with the burn barrel next to it? Do you know the photo I'm talking about?
No, I know what your photo is talking about, but I do not have it handy.
Okay, I'll look for it while you keep going in a minute. Because I think that's what they're talking about here. Kano and Luke went to a burning barrel and garage with some interest, then worked north along the backside of a blue trailer, along a quarry pit, circling around. So that's that circle you can see there, and then continuing southeast along the road. Kano and Luke worked southwest along a road and conveyor belt system for the quarry. We worked that area going in and out of some large barrels. Now, that's really interesting because we can't see any barrels there. So I don't know what sort of barrels they were. No idea. Kano and Loof had some interest in the area of the gravel crusher. Kano and Loof continued for a short while but was working weaker and weaker scent. Because it's very open there, of course. So you're getting into this more, that'll be where she's going out and around. Kano and Loof then gave me a negative and turned around, walking northeast back along the conveyor belt system. Kano and Loof entered the same group of woods that she did on track 1. In the woods, Kano and Loof went by the same 3 deer stands and went into the same ravine of water. Kano and Loof exited the woods coming into a quarry and was working again in the direction of where Teresa Hallback's vehicle was located. Just prior to cresting the berm dividing the quarry and the junkyard, we were requested by the DCI and the sheriff to return to the area of the cul-de-sac. Of course they were. Couldn't have them going just where they wanted to. Millbilly, can I ask a question? Is it unusual to have 3 deer stands in that one little section of woods?
No.
Okay.
Where I go hunting, we got probably 6, maybe 7 acres, and it's all hardwoods. It's on a hill, and we're basically, one of us is at the top of the hill, one of us is in the middle of the hill, one of us is in the bottom of the hill, on a diagonal. And that's on one side of our land. And then the other side of the land, we got three other. Altogether, we have 7 deer stands put up.
Okay.
At the time, we weren't able to bait, so it was sit in a stand and hope to get lucky. But now we can bait, so yeah. Now we just sit and wait.
I must say, like, I don't know anything about hunting, but it struck me as odd that there would be 3 deer stands all in that one little section of woods. But obviously, it's not as unusual as maybe I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
And underneath this tree, Redant had a deer rack to hang the deer after they shot him. It was right underneath the tree. And this is where the red trailer used to be. And there used to be a garage right here too. But yeah, as you can see, they tore that down too. Why? And since the trailer is right here, just north of the trailer, towards the area where the garage was, is where they found the deer burning barrel.
Yeah. And that's where we think, look, it's hard to know where they're talking about the burn barrel. And after listening to the audio 50 million times, trying to transcribe it, I'm suspicious of the way they talk about that burn barrel, whether it's at Redance, whether it's in the gravel pit, it's somewhere west of Avery's and it's off the Avery property. That is very, very clear. It is not on the Avery property. And they themselves describe it as west of the Avery property and past the cornfield. So, yeah, that's pretty clear.
Very. And they're obviously hiding something, because they don't mention Kuss Road at all on the Manitowoc Summer Report. But you hear all the Manitowoc officers all over the radio chatter, every last one of them. But in the report, they only mention Bushman and Seglog. And then you read the Queso report, they don't mention very much either.
And the other thing to mention is the sign-in, sign-out logs are actually quite difficult to marry up with this, because the command post is up on the corner of near where the office is, near where all the white buildings are, and Kuss Road, of course, is kind of west of this. They sign out of the so when they go onto Kuss Road, they sign out of the command post and then they go to Kuss Road, but they don't sign into Kuss Road. So it basically looks like they're signing out, but it doesn't mean they're off duty. It just means they're signing out of the salvage yard property. So that makes it really awkward too, because you can't see where they're going.
And the thing about Bushman, he signs in accompanied at 7:38 with Todd Herman. Bushman never signs out, but he signs back in, accompanied by
Siders, is that?
Yes, it is. And they both sign back in at 1:30 p.m. But the thing is, when the ambulance gets to the command post and signs in, they list who is in the ambulance. But when the ambulance signs out, Siders is the one that brings the ambulance over to Kuss Road. They mention the ambulance leaving, but they don't mention who is in it. So Sider leaves with the ambulance.
Mm.
They both sign back in. Siders and Bushman sign in accompanied at the same time at 1:30 p.m.
Mm.
There's no record of Siders ever signing in, but he signs out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no record of Bushman signing out after he signs in at 7:38 a.m., but he signs back in at 1:30. He then again signs out at 5:30 and never comes back.
Mm.
Bushman was the K-9 unit when he was an officer. He also was a dispatch commander back in 04.
Which is not very long before. It's not like when it's said they brought him out of retirement, I imagine it's years later, but it's not years later.
They didn't actually bring him out of retirement. He was signed up as a reserve deputy. And their reserve deputies are called in for special assignments.
Mm.
Just like Governor Jesse Ventura from Minnesota, the old wrestler, Jesse the Body Ventura, he's a reserve deputy too.
Right.
Just a little side note, has nothing to do with the case, but Herman was a reserve deputy too. Todd Herman.
Yeah, there was some. Oh, that's right. Some the people that came with the ambulance. Some of them actually they appear to not sign out, but then if you look at the civilian logs, some of those people sign out as civilians. Or is it fire?
Fire. Michigan.
Are the fire and civilian together on the 7th? Because sometimes those logs are together and sometimes they're separate. Now I can't remember.
They had over 60 firefighters there, and they split them all up into 4 teams. But it seems like there was nothing but Manitowoc officers in Team A, and they were their whole intention there was to search the surrounding areas, not Avery's. In the case report, you read that Link and Colborne are with Tyson searching the Avery property, but why are we hearing them on dispatch? Tyson never says what time it is. He says just the morning of. The morning of, I was assigned to assist Deputy Link and Colborne to search. But Manitowoc was only called in to assist on security. So, yeah.
Is there anything else that we needed to cover?
No.
Looks like people have gone to bed, so I think we've basically covered the key things.
Yep. Well, it's also 4 something in the morning, so.
There's one thing we haven't covered, but I'm not sure. We didn't really talk about whether we would or not, so we might talk about it and then do another video if we decide we want to cover it.
Yep. But I think I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks everybody that attended, and see you next time.
See you later.